In this episode, I want to explore some of the themes in the novel Heliotropous. You can hear an intro to that story in another episode on this platform entitled Introduction to the Novel Heliotropous. One concept is the notion of taking an oath to your life purpose. It's the idea that we come into this life already having set a life goal, and then we promptly forget about it when we're born. So the trick is to go deep inside to remember it again. Some people remember it more easily than others. Some are more committed to it than others, as we see in the difference between two characters of Tia and Haddon in the story. Staying committed can be hard at times. If it was easy, you might not learn much. The adventure of this life might not be as interesting, so it kind of has to be hard to remember and hard to achieve. So maybe you relate to this, where you've gotten this great idea to achieve a goal like start a business or do something creative or learn something new because it feels on purpose to you, like a deep inner knowing is driving you. But then you kind of give up on it when the going gets tough. And that's usually because you weren't as committed as you needed to be. Now, it's happened to most of us. And then when you finally did commit, all kinds of synchronicity and magic showed up to help the goal along. So in this episode, we will explore how do you go from not truly committed to committed by using a consciousness technology known as an oath to the true self. Now, you may or may not be familiar with an often quoted poem. It's short and it goes like this. Until one is committed, there is hesitancy, the chance to draw back, always ineffectiveness. Concerning all acts of initiative and creation, there is one elementary truth, the ignorance of which kills countless ideas and splendid plans. That the moment one definitely commits oneself, then providence moves too. All sorts of things occur to help one that would never otherwise have occurred. A whole stream of events issues from that one decision, raising in one's favor all manner of unforeseen incidents, meetings, and material assistance which no man could have dreamt would have come his way. Whatever you can do or dream, begin it. Boldness has genius, power, and magic in it. So in this episode, I want to explore this phenomenon. If you're familiar with this magic of choosing to commit, then you might also be familiar with the frustration people often feel when they think they're committed, but providence does not move in. And you may come to realize that a reason for that is that part of you is not committed. The frustration can come from not knowing how to negotiate with the part of you that is not committed, because often it's deep in the unconscious. It's like you have no relationship with that, no understanding of what's going on with the resistance to commitment. And usually it's a fear, a deeper decision you made at a very young age. For example, I had a client who wanted to ramp up his online offerings through coaching. It sounded good on the surface, and he thought he was committed, but he kept avoiding doing what was needed. He wasn't truly committed when we really looked into it together. There was a part of him that was more hidden, more in the unconscious mind that we brought to the surface. Now, he knew that when a person starts anything big and complex like this, there are bound to be mistakes, failures, setbacks. Now, intellectually, he understood that there would be a learning curve. But he made a decision when he was young that he forgot about, not to put himself in a position where he'd be likely to make lots of mistakes and have failure. He came from a family where his parents got very upset with him if he only got a B or B+ instead of an A. He needed to get an A, or in their eyes, he was a failure. The idea of disappointing his parents triggered his survival brain. And that's very common in children. You figure out pretty young that you need to make your parents happy if you're going to survive. Even though they never kicked him out of the house for getting a B+, over the years, it became clear that their hopes and dreams would need to be pinned on his brother. They gave his brother more attention and support because he got higher grades. And this created a lifetime of staying safe, not trying new things for my clients so that he wouldn't risk mistakes and failures. He wouldn't risk not getting top approval from people around him that he cared about. It was easier for him to stay doing something he knew well, even if it was killing him inside, because he wouldn't make those mistakes or have failures as often. Yet it was no longer the right path for him. Not only because he wanted to grow as a person, but because of the way the world had changed, and doing a business online was seemingly one of the few ways he could continue to make a living and support his family. So when we did this process, I'm going to show you in a moment, it aligned his conscious mind with his unconscious mind towards the goal and overrode the fears of failure. So I worked with another client who was okay about her business situation, but was feeling very upset about the state of the world. She wanted to use her skills, talents, and creative abilities to help, but didn't know how. So her instincts told her that there were what she considered two distinct timelines that could play out in the future of the world. One was a dystopian timeline where people were sick, were dying from an illness, where there were few freedoms, there was war, degradation of the environment, more pestilence, hunger, struggle, and an economic depression. The second was a more utopian timeline where health was restored to the world, where people had their sovereign rights, their freedoms, where there was peace of mind inside and peace amongst the people, a rejuvenation of the environment, vibrant health within. People were nourished and thriving. In other words, a golden age of society. Of course, she knew that what you focus on grows, and yet she found herself focusing on the first timeline because of everything she was reading in the news, talking to people about, sharing in social media. And she felt it was up to us as a collective to focus on the second or better timeline if that's what we truly wanted. So I asked her, well, what do you really want? Of course, the second timeline sounded good, but she didn't believe it was possible, or only possible in little ways. And a part of her also believed that it was up to governments or social activists or corporations to get us there. But frustratingly, they weren't, or not fast enough, or not in the right ways. So this idea of making a full commitment to the second timeline within herself started to feel like something she could have control over within herself and perhaps make a difference in her own small way. Now, there's a unique law of the universe whereby belief and commitment are fully intertwined. It's the idea that if you notice you have a lack of commitment, it's really about your unwillingness to believe your goal is possible. And then, of course, the opposite is also true. If you have a full commitment, you also tend to have a willingness to believe that goal is possible, even in the face of evidence to the contrary. And all the great manifestors of huge goals in the world know that secret and live by it, as I've talked about in other episodes. So let's call this commitment to a goal a form of consciousness technology. And by consciousness technology, I mean something that can be done with your mind. Now, most of us only think of technology as an external device like your computer or smartphone. Consciousness technology is based on the theory that we are only tapping into maybe 5% of our brain's capacity, and that anything a computer or smartphone can do is based on what the mind can do. And we are externalizing capacities we actually have within us with these devices. And the more we choose to open up to the possibility of what the mind can do, the more we activate those good capacities. And when we did this process with my client that I'm going to show you in a moment, it aligned her conscious goal and helped her manufacture the belief she needed for the commitment to stick. Because if you understand how laws of manifestation work and how to use consciousness technology, you can manifest all kinds of wonderful things. And one of the big ways to do that is by using your intention to create what you might call oaths, or trusts or contracts, vows, commitments, agreements, covenants. There are many names. And to do that within something called an office with assigned officers. So what do I mean by all that? Well, if you think about it, to manifest the best life possible, you have to negotiate with yourself and with others, in many cases, to form honorable agreements and contracts that are guided by the ideal of respecting each other's free will to pursue values, dreams, and desires. And you have to keep focused in a certain direction enough that the agreements play out as they are intended. So an oath can be a written contract, which is a strong promise to hold one's values, or to appeal to a higher power, or to be committed to a person, goal, business, project. An oath can be as simple as a personal statement or significant as a legally binding contract. Whether an oath is personal or relevant to others, it is a powerful process that's harder to undo. Just as people choose to get married rather than just shack up, they often do so to hold themselves to higher values. Not always, but in many cases, that is the motivating factor. You're going to put more of yourself into the relationship if you're married. And the more you put into something, the more you tend to get out. So it's asking yourself to really focus and put your life energy into a certain direction and not into other directions, which makes it far more likely you will have success. That said, of course, not all marriages, businesses, governments, corporate entities are successful, and people do not keep to those oaths and agreements. That said, without those agreements in place, the chance that the purpose of that project will fall apart is far greater because there's nothing holding it together. So what happens to you when you voluntarily choose to commit yourself to a certain path in life? Well, we literally begin to train ourselves to gain mastery using this consciousness technology. So I'll use the analogy of committing to, say, learning to play a musical instrument. So you take a vow or an oath to learn to play that instrument, but this doesn't magically make you master the instrument just because you've said the words. Clearly it takes dedication and practice. You have to sacrifice time away from other areas of your life so you can get good at playing the instrument. And then if you want to get good at playing the instrument with other people, then you have to find other people who have also recognized and committed themselves to playing an instrument. So then you can come together and play music together. And even if you've learned a piece of music back, 5 years ago, it doesn't matter that you still know how to play it perfectly. Today, it still takes vigilance and persistence. And that's why people often retake oaths, redo their marriage vows. In other words, committing to a goal like music or your business or your marriage or doing good in the world takes continual commitment, continual practice. So what can help that continual recommitment that invites the magic and universal support? Try taking an oath. So taking an oath is like performing a ceremony that activates certain energies in the universe. And you can use them for small things, for big things, for good things, or bad things. People do it all the time, so be careful how you use them as they are powerful. So you see prime ministers and presidents taking an oath before they enter office, right? Or when a couple gets married, they take vows, which at an energetic level are things. Just like some people say that thoughts are things, they are the precursors to substantive form in denser realities. Nothing comes into form without thoughts. So vows and oaths are like thoughts on steroids. Of course, you see it in the law and the legal system with legal contracts written on paper. The law is actually just a bunch of thoughts, oaths, vows written on paper. So think about when someone breaks an oath, like in a courtroom, to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth. Or when someone breaks a marriage vow or doesn't honor a business partnership agreement. It's a bigger deal. It's written down and signed, and it's done within a larger context or with witnesses. It goes deeper into someone's consciousness and feels more intense to break it. Of course, people do break those oaths and vows, but the psychological damage is greater, at least in people who are not sociopaths. So again, be careful what you vow to or take an oath to. So we have this idea of an office. So when you take an oath, you're actually entering into an office. What do I mean by that? Again, it's a form of consciousness technology, which is specifically designed to honor free will. So say you're in a family unit and you all want to go on vacation. Well, who's the person that's going to wake everyone up to make sure you get on your flights? Well, let's say it's mom. She gets nominated as an officer or a trustee to take action on the goal that everybody has mutually agreed to. Some verbal expression to the family, which is effectively an oath of office that she takes regarding this activity. So when I say office, I don't mean a massive skyscraper in a downtown core. I mean the energetic space where people gather together to coordinate their desires and then invest those into certain individuals who will stand up and take on the duty of expressing that mutual goal. So a contract is a really important thing to understand too. A contract is when two or more people state their individual intentions to figure out how to manifest the goal in specific terms and with specific conditions. They explicitly agree to carry out the duties required to manifest it into reality. So an oath in this sense is when each person accepts their part of the contract. So that's what a corporation is at an energetic level. It's when a bunch of people who have rights get together to do some projects that they want to carry into the world. For example, if you've ever created a limited company, you know that you have to name officers of that company. So in summary, oaths, vows, and agreements are things in the energetic realm, a form of consciousness technology that are like the building blocks of what comes into reality, and you do that within an office or corporation and take on an officer role within that. So it serves you to use this kind of consciousness technology with wisdom to create what you want personally and professionally, and where necessary to contribute to a positive future for the world. Because if you don't do that, you might find yourself creating oaths, vows, and agreements that you didn't really mean to do, that don't serve you or the world, or to reinforce ones that have been there for a long time. So the good news is that creating a new oath, vow, or agreement can override an old one, especially if it's done repeatedly and connected to a positive emotional feeling. Now the word emotion includes the word motion, and emotions mobilize words to manifest reality. The opposite of that is to create words with no emotion, and then it stays more at the intellectual level and doesn't filter down into the body, doesn't get embodied, and therefore doesn't come into reality. It's that idea of just going through the motions. Or like if you've ever watched a speaker and they're just dialing it in. They don't seem emotionally connected to their words. It's like they don't really believe what they're saying. It's the same idea. You have to really get behind what you're saying. So you have to find words that work for you. But I'll give you a few examples and then you can make up your own based on the goals you want to manifest. And if you write them down and say them from time to time, it really will help the magic come in. So here's one we did for a client who wanted to ramp up his online coaching. He ran his business with his wife, so they created the oath together, so it became part of an actual partnership agreement between them. So he said, I, Richard, his name, do solemnly swear that I will work with Marissa, his wife's name, to launch, enroll, and fulfill on the promises of, and then they named their coaching program, to the best of my ability. I will faithfully execute my office within, then they named their company, and will, to the best of my ability, preserve, protect, and defend the vision, mission, and purpose of our company. In addition, I choose to fully defend against all enemies and bear true faith and allegiance to our vision and mission. I take this obligation freely without any mental reservation. I will faithfully attend to the duties of the office on which I am about to enter, so help me God. So that was taken from typical oaths people use in a court of law, legal documents, marriage vows, etc. But you have to make it your own. The words have to feel meaningful to you, and you need to feel emotionally connected to them. So here's a second example. It's the one I did with a client who wanted to focus on her part in creating a positive golden age timeline for the world. So it was a personal agreement she was making with herself and what she referred to as the universe, or the source of all things. I, then she said her name, do solemnly swear that I will focus on seeing the world restored to health, where there is peace of mind inside, peace amongst the people, a rejuvenation of the outer environment, vibrant health within, people are nourished and thriving. I will do this to the best of my ability, knowing that what I focus on grows. I will faithfully execute my role within the collective mindset of humanity and will, to the best of my ability, preserve, protect, and defend this vision. I take this obligation freely without any mental reservation. I choose to faithfully attend to the duties of this role in which I am about to enter, now and always. May the universe be my witness and eternal partner in this process. So in both cases, the oath was like erecting a foundation upon which to bring this goal into reality. So without that foundation, the old programs, the fears, the double-mindedness gets in the way. And by double-mindedness, I mean, you know how you decide to do something and then you're not sure and you kind of undecide. When you do that, you dissipate your power of manifestation. It's like the metaphor of ordering something from Amazon. You make the order and then you ask for a refund and then you reorder it and then you ask for a refund. On the other end, they start to send it and then they stop the sending process and then they start sending it again, but they get so confused it never really leaves the warehouse. So this ensures the package leaves the warehouse. Does that make sense? I hope that's helpful. So if you'd like to check out the novel Heliotropous, go to goldenagetimeline.com. And to check out our nonfiction book, Mind Story Inner Coach, which gives you a 5-step Avara model to help uncover what's in the way of truly committing to your life purpose. Now, if you want the exact wording of those oaths to copy and paste and edit, just go to goldenagetimeline.com/podcast and look for episode number 4, Making an Oath to Your Life Purpose, and scroll down to the transcript and you'll see it there. Okay, that's it for today. Do like, share, and subscribe if you haven't already done so. Until next time, I'm CM Rieger. Thanks for listening.